Hi, and welcome back to, our breakout room. The purpose for this evening and with this breakout room is that we're going to do a deeper dive to discuss how data and innovation are changing the game for modern regenerative agriculture. So we're going to do a couple of speeches and then we'll get into some Q&A. So our first speaker for this evening is Dr. Sylvain Moreno. He is the founder and scientific director of Agritech Innovation Sandbox, and he's also an associate professor at the School of Interactive Arts and Technology at Simon Fraser University. Take it away.
Thank you very much, Glenn. I'm very excited to be with you tonight and to talk to you about innovation and agtech. So the title of my presentation is Working Together, Working Better, Building BC Agtech Sector of the Future. So before we sorry, like I'm hearing like another sound when I talk, so it's difficult for me to give my. I apologize for the audience. So first, before starting my talk, I want to talk about the land, because that's very important for Canadian and for us in BC. And I'm professor at Simon Fraser University, and Simon Fraser University respectfully acknowledge the Musqueam, the Squamish, the Tsleil-Waututh, the Quatsi, the Quilquantlen, the Quaiquat, the Kwantlen, Suniamu, Tawesan people on whose unceded traditional territories our three campuses reside, and we are thankful for that. So BC Agtech sector. So BC has the most diverse agriculture sector in Canada. BC agriculture sector is facing critical challenges: climate change adaptation, increasing competitiveness, food security, long-term sustainability, and labor gaps. But today, what is really important, we want to talk about data, innovation, technology, and people. So what is data? Data is, for us, a building block. It's something that's going to allow us to empower agriculture. So it's just the tool for that we're going to take, and we have multiple of tools, but one of the potential tools we can use to really improve agriculture and help farmers. So what are some examples? We can use new approaches. We see some of them in Jeff's talk just before. But approaches in big data, IoT, AI, machine learning, robotics, and automation. Enabling continuous monitoring of crops using wireless sensor to track these changes. Increasing automation using robotic and drones. Implementing real-time data collection on lands being farmed. And I'm not talking about science fiction here. This is already technologies that are applied on the field in different parts of the world. And even in BC, we have some examples that are currently applied. But you know, when we talk about data, this is not a unique piece of the puzzle. Of course, data here are important, but we have also technologies that take a very key place in innovation. And then around that, there is a collaborative ecosystem of expertise to address the challenge together. But the most important, and we'll never be able to just reinforce that enough, is people. Without people, we have no agriculture, and we have no innovation, we have no technology, and we have certainly no data. So we have a very specific agtech sector here in BC. Our sector is dominated by small, creative, flexible, and innovative scale-ups. Scale-up allow for agile development and adoption of new technologies. And this creates tremendous opportunities for growth in BC if we bridge the gap and the difficulties that those industry players are facing on an everyday basis. So what are those sector gaps that are impeding the growth of our industry? is sort of well positioned for agile development, like I explained. The sector is facing three main challenges. First one, most of the stakeholders in the sectors are functioning in silo, so isolated from each other. They have limited access to skilled talent and specialized resources. And this prevents these players to really reach the global podium. So what we see as a solution in our initiative is SMEs, is focusing on them and helping them to succeed. How? That's what I'm going to explain to you today. This is AGIS, AgTech Innovation Sandbox. This is how we plan to help them. So what is AGIS? AGIS is a network of multi-stakeholders, of over 60 multi-stakeholders all across the province. Agri-food producers, government, academia, industry, not-for-profit, and environmental organization. We built our initiative on the SFU pioneering model of digital health circle we call circle innovation, grounded in product development. So here you see on the slide a representation of this model. So you can see all the partners that are the stakeholders of our field. So government, academia, industry, not-for-profit, environmental organization, and agri-food producers. We are bringing them together through project to create new product together to really answer the need of our field. How the AGIS model works. So the AGIS model is a co-creation model. And it really based on the strengths of precision agriculture, circular agriculture, and agri-genomics to grow BC agritech sector and position the province as an agtech leader. So AGIS model, unlike BC incubator and accelerator that focus on startup and business services, AGIS focus on SMEs, scale-ups, and product development. We have three main pillars. One is focusing on product development, the second one specializing in the agtech sector, and the third one connecting relevant stakeholders. What is really key for us for you to understand is first, please, if you're interested in our model, reach out to me or reach out to our group, and we'll be very happy to involve you in those projects or to create a project with you. But through those projects, we're going to be able to develop the agtech network and to connect all the stakeholders together, but also to offer opportunity to train and upskill a worker to be able to answer the demand of the industry in agtech. This is kind of a geographical representation of the network as of today. So you can see that we have created hubs in several regions of BC that will allow agri-food producer and industry and different other stakeholders to collaborate where they are implemented. Instead of having one only point where everybody has to go, we're going to bring the technology and the pilot testing and the land access where they are. So here's the end of my talk. So I want to encourage you to join us in this agtech innovation model. And please free to contact us. This is our contact information. I will be happy to discuss with you and to help. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Moreno. Our second speaker is Dr. Annette Rosick. Dr. Rosick is the Chief Scientific Officer at Terramera, and she helped develop Terramera's Actigate targeted performance technology. She's an accomplished scientist, visionary leader with a passion for creating technologies for a healthier world from food to the environment. So please welcome Dr. Rosick.
Thank you very much, and good evening all. Terramera is based in Vancouver. And so to begin with, I want to acknowledge that I'm speaking from the traditional territory of the Coast Salish people and unceded territory of Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh First Nations. And I also want to thank Minister Lana Popham, the BC government, and the Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Fisheries team and staff for putting on this conference. I'm extremely thankful to be here, exciting times, and I've already learned so much over the last couple of days. So thank you very much. So Terramera really believes in scaling regenerative agriculture and improving soil health enables us to meet our 3 audacious goals. And those are increasing soil organic carbon by 100%, increasing global farm productivity by 20%, and reducing global synthetic pesticide loads by 80%. And when we set these 3 big, hairy, audacious goals, like these are 10-year goals, right? We at first didn't connect them, but through learning about regenerative agriculture, we realized that indeed they're all 3 connected. At the root of our farm productivity and our crop health is soil health. And that increases the resilience of the plants and their ability to defend themselves against pests. And so in turn, we can reduce the application of synthetic pesticides or pesticides in general, which helps the microbial communities in the soil to thrive, and which again allows us to draw down atmospheric CO2 and improve soil health. And so working this virtuous cycle is really important, and Terramera wants to advance all 3 of these goals, and we believe that regenerative agriculture is the way to do it. Oops, one too many. So the future of ag needs to be regenerative. It will lead to higher predictability and resilience of food production. It will increase the quality of our produce. It increases our soil health and allows us to draw down carbon from the atmosphere. And it will increase farmer profits once all the methods are implemented, and which overall improves the health of our planet. And we have heard yesterday from Gabe Brown on the 6 principles of regenerative ag that are driving the 4 ecosystem processes. And so now I just want to share a couple thoughts with you on, how I think that regenerative ag is connected to agritech, and really want to commend this network on picking this name, RAAN, because it really hits the most important thing here, which is that regenerative agriculture and agri-technology really belong together. And so what I think is that, at the root, the basic need that we have here is really understanding what's going on in the field. And again, great name picked by Gabe Brown for his company, Understanding Ag. Understanding is where it all begins. And it is understanding the context of every individual farm, the specific ecology of the soil, the crops that are grown, the climate, and specifically the microclimate, and understanding how that all works together, putting that into the context of the community, and the farm operations, partnerships that might benefit these operations between farmers, and then using that understanding to increase the profitability of the farm. And some of these principles are already being applied. Farmers, all across the country apply cover cropping and no-till practices, but and those are still fairly compatible with the way we do agriculture, which is a large-scale agriculture and a monocrop agriculture. However, these practices alone don't help us to regenerate soil yet. They help us to be sustainable, to regain what we lose year after year by removing the crops, so the product of the soil, basically, our food. But regenerating the soil, means more than that. It means increasing soil health year after year after year, and successively approaching the state that it originally had, when nature was the only thing that grew there, right? Forests or grasslands. And so that's not easy to do. That requires, applying all 6 of those principles. And it requires changing the methodologies of working the land. And changing always means risk. And we have heard the farmer needs to keep risk low. Again, back to understanding, it starts with observation. And so observation is really, kind of the core trait of a scientist. Observation and interpretation of what we see makes us scientists. And in that sense, the farmer is the scientist. They know their land the best, and they know how to observe. And they also know the practices that have been passed down over the generations that are beneficial. But I want to say that so far, they have mainly used their own senses, their human senses, their eyes and ears, and their ability to think with the data that they collect. The opportunity we have today is that we can extend the range of our natural senses. Our eyes work in a visible range, but cameras can extend beyond that range to the UV range, so the blue range, and the infrared range. And camera eyes see more than our own eyes do. And let's take advantage of that. Also, we can use technology to see below the ground, right? And the farmer does that. They need to take a spade and dig into the ground, determine how deep a root reaches, for instance. But new technologies can determine that in non-invasive methods. Same for understanding the microscopic life in the soil. Again, our eyes not able to do that. We see the results of microbes that are in the ground, but we don't see the microbes themselves. We don't see the nutrients in the ground, but we have analytical methods that can determine each nutrient that is there. And that is not just NPK, that is carbon as well. Termera is developing technologies to quantify soil carbon and nutrients. We are developing sensors for moisture in the soil, but also in the canopy, temperature and canopy humidity. We're developing plant imaging technology to detect disease and pests, which can be mounted on drones and on UAVs. And, as mentioned, they can detect diseases and pests before our own eyes can see them. And so we are working to generate the tools for farmers that allow them to see more, and then interpret that data, think about the interconnectedness of all that data and what they can do about it, how they can act on it. So I want to use the last 2 minutes to highlight a few barriers, and I'm going to speed up a little bit. That is the cost of new technology. We really need to de-risk investing in agritech. There's currently a piecemeal of different technologies. The farmer has, different interface for different sensors, and it needs to be integrated to integrate all the information from various devices to produce insight. And so improving the usability and the user experience from using technology is really important. Network access was already mentioned. Network security is really important. Data governance is very important. Data ownership has been a very contested areas, and we can actually learn from other industries here of what to apply in agriculture. We need education. We need new skill sets to operate this new technology, which takes time. We need risk management, and in order to implement all these new technologies, we need a systematic and a collaborative approach. We need to bring the grower into the conversation. The grower is the scientist, and we are serving that scientist. And so just to close, government has done a lot of groundwork. There's a vision, clearly, there's a vision. Now we need strategy and execution. We can have a front seat in the biggest change in human history since the Industrial Revolution, which is the application of digital tools to food and farming systems. And properly done, it will help us live healthier and longer, save the planet, and create jobs. Thank you very much.
Sorry, I was on mute. Thank you, Dr. Rosick. I definitely want to come back once we get into the Q&A about some of those pieces that you talked about at the end, specifically data ownership. That it's always a very interesting thing for me, who's a data nerd, to understand that kind of stuff, or where you see it's going. Anyway, I want to introduce our third speaker for tonight in this breakout session. It's Dr. David Charest. He is the sector manager of Ag Foods and Natural Resources with GENOME-BC. Dr. Charest connects government, sector stakeholders, companies that are advancing policy strategies, implementing technology solutions, and commercializing new market opportunities with key academic researchers with genomic experience and know-how. So I'll pass it over to David.
Thank you, Glenn, for the introduction. Before I start in, I would just like to thank the organizers for taking the time to invite me to this evening and talk about GENOME-BC's work in innovation and data, and also to be part of the conversation in the agritech and regenerative agriculture space. As we commemorate this first National Day of Truth and Reconciliation, I just want to acknowledge that GENOME-BC's office is located on the unceded traditional territories of the Coast Salish peoples, including the territories of the Musqueam, Tsleil-Waututh, and Squamish First Nations. The research we support focuses on understanding living organisms, small and large. We do so through research on those molecules essential to life, that is to say, DNA, proteins, and metabolites. For this talk, I will refer to these collectively as genomics. GENOME-BC sits at the intersection of government, academia, and end users such as industry associations, non-for-profits, and companies. We pursue our mission with different tools, such as convening thought leadership, capacity building, funding programs, partnerships, and expert advice. Our vision reflects our aim to move genomics from scientific pursuit to daily applications and real-life impacts. We work across all sectors critical to British Columbia. And I would mention specifically, as the symbol in the bottom right-hand corner shows, technology platform infrastructure is in place to support all of the activities, technologically speaking. Example, sequencing, data analysis, and bioinformatics. Over the 20-year period, GENOMBC has worked and developed over 425 projects. I would say it's probably larger than that because we are in the midst of adding more projects to our portfolio. Our portfolio is quite large at, well, just over $1 billion. Most importantly, we've been able to leverage money from other partners as co-investors in many of our projects, if not almost all of our projects. And we're able to provide a return on investment of 4 to 1 by leveraging our provincial investments to attract this funding to BC. We have over 1,000 partners, some of them international, at least in 42 countries, as well as regional and national partners. We have quite a large number of patents, scientific papers, and we're quite happy with the fact that we're trying to advance this technology. And companies in BC, we've advanced a number of just over 100 companies to date, and probably more than that. Dated a little bit older than this last week. So GENOMBC, we're moving into more innovation scenario going forward. When you look at GENOMBC's evolution, on the left-hand side, you see that the technologies that we focused on, this idea of genomic sciences, was very new and more or less developed and practiced within the academic sphere, and that was back in 2000. As the science and genomics matured, we initially started moving our focus from the discovery phase more into the applied and translational research. And by applied research, this is researcher-driven outcome for the purpose of advancing technology. And the translation involved more of user-driven involvement. All of this had embedded innovation within it, but not specifically pursued as a focus in terms of our company's work. So the current plan for the 2020-2023 period, we are deliberately introducing the innovation as part of our strategic investments, and that's the little 10% yellow slice in the last figure there. You know, we're trying to harness the power of genomics to advance this innovation mandate of ours. And GENOMBC, we really define this idea of innovation as a translation or practical translation of ideas and research outcomes into new and improved products, services, processes, and systems. Now, I would also add social interactions, because the social piece is critical to getting adoption and acceptance of the technology. We use a method for estimating maturity of technologies called a technology readiness level. And when you look at some early stage work in academic spheres, it's typically discovery research, novel research, leading to proof of concept of a certain idea or innovation, a certain idea or science that could be potentially put into an innovation. So once we've had that proof of concept information, we're able to move into that innovation phase of development. And within the innovation phase, you're really starting with early prototypes, lab-based approaches, and trying to move that more towards later stage prototypes and moving it into more field application of environments such as greenhouses or out in the field. So that middle phase in the blue circle is really where our innovation focus is going to be in the future. And of course, as these innovations mature, other investors will come forward and bring them to market using business development approaches. We really recently launched a pilot innovation fund that we are using as a learning platform to develop a much longer innovation funding program to support our innovation mandate. And there'll be more about that in the coming months and years going forward. In the last few slides, I just want to talk about our sort of agri-food and natural resource sector strategy and how we're trying to look at this idea of sustainability. So GENOMBC's focus on food security, looking at more productive food systems, renewable resources, looking at sustainable production, biomass conversion, alternative use of waste. And also we're looking at keeping our ecosystems resilient, at the same time reducing biodiversity loss through the work we do in conservation management. Omics is at the heart of what we do. We leverage research capacity and technology to produce supporting data and knowledge creation to advance innovation. Also, over the years, we have learned that scalability of innovation requires other key pillars, such as policy and regulation and education on the use and application of genomics technologies within our society. These necessary components are important for the commercialization and implementation that ultimately drives our need for a sustainable bioeconomy. We're in the process of developing a data strategy for genomic information, genomic data. So as genomics becomes a more integral part of the life sciences landscape, as I mentioned earlier, we're trying to move it into more practical applications. The volume of genomic data continues to increase at an ever-increasing rate, much faster than it can be organized, analyzed, interpreted, and implemented. Our strategy is to focus on technology development for the uptake of genomics in sectors like agriculture, in deploying of data analytics, bioinformatics, data integration, that will lead to actionable management decisions. We also engage in social scientists and humanists to address the challenges related to data access and sharing, as Annette mentioned earlier. In building capacity, we're also looking at ways we can support this idea of regenerative agriculture. The health of the micro ecosystem in soil is crucial to sustainable agriculture, as has been mentioned throughout the last 3 days. As Mr. Brown mentioned in his video yesterday, there are 1 million microbes in a teaspoon of soil that there's more microbes in a teaspoon of soil than people on our planet, which speaks to the importance of the microbial communities in providing complex and vital interactions that are essential to maintain proper nutrient balance, essential to soil health, carbon sequestration, that will ultimately lead to healthier plants and planet, as others have highlighted in earlier talks. At GENOMBC, we have funded several projects in forestry and remediation that led to the development of genomic tools to sample, analyze, and interpret microbial soil information to understand how these microbes operate in their environments. And these tools have the potential to be used in regenerative agriculture. In closing, I just want to convey that genomic tools and digital genomic information, especially the microbiome and biodiversity, can help provide new opportunities to support the development of regenerative agriculture approaches and practices. It has the potential to provide new tools in the agritech innovation arsenal to demonstrate the benefits of these practices in addressing food security, improve environmental stewardship, and potentially help mitigate climate change. When thinking in terms of context that many people spoke throughout this conference, genomics has the potential to provide data and information that allow all producers to choose the right plant for the right place, grown in the right way, at the right time. With that, I thank you for listening.
Thank you, David. Much appreciated. And now we're going to get into our Q&A portion of the evening. We've got some great minds here, so let's take advantage of it, and let's start probing into some questions. How I'm going to handle this is I'm going to start first question. I'm going to start with you, Annette, then to David, and to Sylvain. So the first question is, what unique challenges and opportunities does BC have compared to other jurisdictions? So Annette, I'll start with you, if you've got any ideas. If not, we'll move it on.
Unique challenges. Honestly, I haven't done a jurisdiction comparison yet. But I mean, we have, fairly diverse geography in BC. In Vancouver, it's very wet, very rainy for most part of the year. Our agricultural lands are, start with peat. And, they started as wetlands. And when we have cultivated, when we started cultivating them, the crops are very different. And that quickly can lead to erosion of the soil if not the right practices are applied. So the challenge is that the natural environment is not exactly the ideal environment for the crop, and so it changes over time through our practices because we change the microenvironment of where the plants grow. And coming back to the geographical diversity, in BC we have very dry areas in the Okanagan, and then it's a large province. You go into the north, the cycle. The seasons that we have to grow food there is a lot shorter, it's we don't actually have all year to work with the soil, and it's we also have there's also an opportunity in that we can something I didn't talk about is introduce domestic livestock in smart ways to combine with growing crops, which is a regenerative practice. And so yeah, maybe I'll leave it there. Let the other ones chime in as well.
Perfect. David, do you?
Yeah, I'd like to certainly explore this a bit. What I'm really intrigued about, and I think there are other very bright people on the call and listening in, is we have a variety of producer size. We go from small producers to large producers across many commodities, and I'm very interested to know how we can how we will gather this data and have it inform not only large players who perhaps have resources, but also some of the smaller commodities who perhaps don't have those resources. So how can we gather data, as Annette mentions, across geographies, across climates, and how can we bring that to bear so that everybody within regions of BC can benefit from the data that's being gathered and collected over time, and how can we use that to inform management practices, be it in smaller farms or larger farms? And I think that's a really interesting question. I think one that we need to think about, because we do have a lot of commodities, a lot of large and small farms, and how does this all come together so it benefits the industry at large?
Nice. So you're seeing the challenge, obviously, within sort of the varying sizes of the agricultural entities, is what you're saying. So
yeah, how does that trickle down to everyone? How does this the benefits of data and technology trickle down to all farmers in British Columbia?
Great question. Sylvain, do you have any thoughts?
I agree with Annette and David. I think maybe another angle that we didn't talk about is, I think one of the challenge is this notion of silo that we have in agtech or agriculture in general, where we have those kind of different stakeholders, like the industries, the agri-producers, government players, and not-for-profit, the universities that tend to work really isolated from each other. And so I think bringing them together is a very key part, and I think that's what the Ministry of Agriculture is trying to do, for example, with this conference, but with different initiatives that I've been part of and supporting. So I think that's one of the things that we need to do in the very near future to address as a challenge. And benefit, I think that the people, I come back to my talk, more I work in agtech and agriculture, more I'm just blown away by energy and the capacity that people in BC have to be engaged in projects. Like we have a very strong industry network. We saw that tonight with Terramera, but also with smaller SMEs that are very energetic. But also we have this kind of new generation of agri-food producers that are interested in technology, want to learn more about that, are hungry to adapt those technology to their work. So I think this is really a potential that we need to grab to be on the global podium in terms of creating the best food. And I think one also advantage that we saw through this pandemic is like BC citizens want to have quality product, want to buy from BC agri-food producer. And that has been something that Ministry Popham just discussed in several talks. And this is really, a key difference from other, part of the world. And that can really empower the whole agri-food sector.
Okay. So let's stick with that sort of small scale farmer idea. So how do you think that data and innovation can make a difference for that small scale farmer? Who'd like to start? I'll choose. David.
I kind of look at it and say how, if we're out collecting data, we're using, small and large farms in different regions, how does that data then, how can that be used to better inform the small farmer and lead to actionable management decisions and those kinds of things? How do they benefit, and how can we collect and benefit and share that information so that as Sylvain mentions, to break down those silos, to return that information, as Annette said, back to getting back the farmer, the small farmer, the large farmer involved, and being actively involved in decisions and science as we move forward. I think that's really an important consideration. So, I don't know if others have other.
Anybody like to add?
Yeah, I don't think it's really a consideration that we should create technology for large farm and small farm. I think there is technologies that can be translated to any size of farms, and there is some problems that are inherent to the type of crops you are producing. But I think like the point is instead of like trying to distinguish between the type of farm, but more like trying to understand the problems that are common to the field and how can we help them. And large or small farm, they, at least in my experience, they're very interested in trying to understand how they can improve their work.
Nice. So just to sort of follow on to that, like I've been thinking about this just when I started this evening. One of my comments was, I love the idea of data, the sort of open data ability to be able to open up that access to data. So what does the future of farming look like with sort of increased innovation and access to all kinds of data, whether that's, just on their farm or whether that's from other farms around them? So what does that look like? Annette, do you want to?
We have some ideas around that, of course. And so the data collection, and this idea of having it all come together on your phone, right? Where it's just at your fingertips that you can recall different data. That is really important for the farmer's user experience, because that really makes the farmer be in control. On the other hand, that data doesn't it's shared over a network, right? Unless it's a very independent farm that has their own server and collects and processes the data all by themselves. Which, maybe a farmer, I understand, would prefer, right? Other farmers, however, want to get that benefit of learning from data that other farms are collecting, which, yeah, I mean, that makes total sense, right? Because you get more, you get more data that overall, which makes any kind of conclusion you can draw from that more reliable. But if you don't want to share your data with other farmers, then that is understandable too. Farmers are very competitive. But there is a way actually technologically to feed that data into a database and let, say, machine learning models draw conclusions, make predictions from that data without identifying where that data has originated. It's a machine that processes it. And so with that, every farmer can benefit from what other farmers do without, giving away, competitive information. And that is exponential. Like the benefit from aggregating data is exponential. And so that's my opinion. And what I also feel strongly is to listen to the farmer first, though. Like let them decide how to approach this.
Of course. But what you're talking about obviously is a trusted third party that's sort of a holder of that data. Sylvain, what do you think?
I think like for me the future is when we're gonna have agri-food producers that are gonna work hand in hand with technology company, and we're gonna listen to them and understand what are their needs. Like one of the main issues that I see in my day-to-day working with those stakeholders is like I saw tons of company not even talking to farmers, not even listening. So I think like this bridge of communication and this deep understanding, like Annette was expressing here, is key for the future. That's what the future needs to look like, right? The future needs to look like a conversation that is on daily basis with tons of feedback from each other, and understand that what is the day-to-day work on the field, and technology have to be robust. They have to last tons of hours, because that's what it is, the work of a farmer, from like the morning when they wake up to when the sun comes down. Like this is, I think, the main important point where we have to bring the future, because the technology are here. It's not like we need to create a revolution in data processing or in technology per se, and create another drone that's gonna go over the field. But understand what technology can be applied under what circumstance, in which dimension of the production or the location of the region, is what we need to listen to and create those technology or adapt this technology to the current needs.
Right. So listening to the farmer, because they're the ones that know what's happening on their land, of course, right? Which makes obvious sense. David.
I come back to the idea of this data handling, data privacy, and things. And in a couple of cases where we've developed technology, analytical tools and stuff, it's been interesting that where we thought we would create a place where people could deposit their data and do the analysis within that space, the reverse happened, in that people would really just want to take that technology infrastructure and then incorporate it into their own systems, so that they could keep things more proprietary, more control over the data and the decisions around the data. So it's an interesting a challenge, and I think as Annette says, if we're going to get valuable information out of this not just only at a farm level, but at a region level, differences between growing food in Abbotsford versus the Peace River region, there's some very strong differences there. So how do you bring together data that benefits the larger community in the region, but also respects the privacy? And then I think those are questions that I think probably technology's there, and we just need to explore how that could work so that scientists can benefit and give it's weather scientists, climate scientists, farmers, government, all people, different stakeholders can benefit from that data, use it for what they need, their purposes, but also bring down all that larger data sets together to make better decisions overall and modeling and those kinds of things. So
makes sense. Okay, we've only got like 30 seconds left. So what I'm going to do is we'll just do quick sort of what you see is the biggest barrier to adopting ag tech. We'll just simple answers. We'll start with Annette.
It's the cost of new technology. Like we really have to de-risk in investing in agritech, and we have to de-risk acquiring training on using new technologies on the field. Okay, David.
I would say cost, but also just how do we go from an end product into implementation? What are those steps and what needs to happen? It's not always clear how that pathway is in technology adoption.
Okay, Sylvain.
Okay, so I agree with all of you guys. I think safe space. So create pilot space for company and other stakeholders to work together and to really implement that. This is the notion for me that is missing right now.
Okay, fantastic. We're going to get sent back to the main room where we're going to have our closing talk from Minister Heyman.
Thank you, Glenn.
Well, thank you everybody for attending this evening, and we're going to end off with a message from the Honorable George Heyman of Environment, Climate, and Climate Change Strategy. George was first elected as an MLA to Vancouver Fairview in 2013, and he has been re-elected twice since. He was first appointed to the Minister of Environment and Climate Change Strategy in July 2017.
Hi, I'm George Heyman, BC's Minister of Environment and Climate Change Strategy. I'm joining you tonight from the traditional territories of the Musqueam, the Squamish, and the Tsleil-Waututh peoples. It's an honor to be asked to provide closing remarks for what's been an opportunity to come together, to learn, and to inspire. regenBC has provided a venue to share our successes and challenges in the agriculture sector and to discover how we can adapt to the realities of climate change. This summer's unprecedented weather-related challenges, from flooding to drought, excess heat and fires, have been devastating for producers in BC and around the world. We know these types of extreme weather events are expected to become more common and that these challenges are not going to go away. Climate change is an issue that affects all of us. To create a better future, we need to work together across sectors, across disciplines, and of course, across governments. In BC, we've developed a plan to address the climate crisis and reduce our emissions called Clean BC. Through Clean BC, we're tackling today's most pressing environmental challenges. Not only does our plan reduce emissions and build a cleaner, stronger economy, it's also going to protect watersheds and ecosystems, reduce wildfire risk, and establish better agricultural practices. It means transitioning to cleaner, better ways of producing things, improving how we grow food, how we build, how we move, how we create and use energy. While the actions we take today will reduce the impacts of further climate change, we know we must also prepare for the changes that are here to stay. In response, we've developed a draft climate preparedness and adaptation strategy, which will be finalized early next year. And to make sure that the strategy protects people and natural systems in the decades to come, we've been involved in extensive consultation inside and outside of government. We believe it's critically important to develop an approach that respects our commitments to reconciliation and includes traditional Indigenous knowledge and cultural perspectives. and so a significant focus of our engagement has been with Indigenous peoples, nations, and organizations. Additional input has also come from local governments, agricultural producers, businesses, academics, nonprofits, and people across BC to identify what's at risk and how we can prepare together. The strategy will build on the actions of people all across British Columbia who are already working on and adapting to the changing climate we live in. It includes actions to work with the agricultural sector to build a climate-ready food system, to strengthen resilience to climate risks, and to ensure we use the opportunities to store more carbon. These include expanding the work supported by the Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Fisheries to help producers increase resilience to climate change risks such as wildfires, drought, flooding, extreme heat, and pests. Expanding provincial Indigenous and local monitoring networks such as agricultural areas, stream flow, groundwater, and ecosystems. And promoting innovative solutions like the ones you've been discussing at this conference. While BC farmers and producers can access programs to help with the financial costs of extreme weather events, establishing long-term sustainable solutions are what we need to adapt to climate change. Innovative solutions like regenerative agriculture and agritech will help ensure the continued viability of our agricultural sector. Of course, it's easy enough to talk about plans and strategies, but we know we also need to make sure that they happen. We've taken action across all sectors of our economy, with goalposts and targets set in binding legislation, and we intend to continue doing so. Because people expect and deserve transparency and accountability, we required ourselves by law to present an annual report to the legislature and through the legislature to the public. This makes sure we're on the path to meeting our commitments and that we can adjust our actions where needed by constantly monitoring where we have success and where we need to do better. That's why we're updating and expanding our Clean BC plan through the Roadmap to 2030, which we intend to release later this fall. We've realized that we need to accelerate and expand climate action to meet the urgency of the climate crisis. So the roadmap will build on the actions that are already underway by doing more, faster, particularly where we've been successful, so that we meet our climate targets and build an economy that's ready for a net zero future. It will also strengthen policies and support people and businesses to ensure that the transition is affordable for everyone. The agricultural sector is an important part of this transition, and regenerative agriculture in particular offers promising avenues to help us reduce emissions and build new opportunities in the clean economy of the future. You wouldn't be here if you didn't realize the need to act now to ensure a sustainable future for generations to come, for our kids, for our grandkids, for their kids. We need to think outside the box to address climate change, and thanks to the speakers over the past 3 days, it's obvious that many people are already doing that. The success stories that I've heard of from this conference were inspiring. They are great examples of how we can strengthen our economy and food security through innovation. Addressing the climate crisis requires that we all act in partnership. By acting in unison and sharing what we learn, we will create a brighter future. A future that's defined by how we adapted to our changing landscape and how we acted to secure a future, a solid future, a bright future for the next generations. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Minister Heyman, for closing us off this evening. I also want to say thank you to all of our speakers this evening, all of the people that made this possible. And of course, I'd like to thank our Minister, Lana Popham, for all of the tireless work that she's been doing for us. Thank you and good evening.